Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Angels of Death, Episode 8. When we last left off, Rachel and Zack arrived on the second basement. Zack was still super injured from the fight with Kathy, and so Rachel ran off to try to find some medicine, where she had a bunch of visions, and finally encountered Gray, who is the priest, and presumably the floor master of Floor 2. And then Gray's like, yeah, we can go down to Danny's floor, and you will get some medicine there. And so they head down. Rachel promises that she will come back and save Zack. And then they head down to the third basement where Kathy lived. And then the prisoners that grabbed Rachel in that one episode 4, I think, are free now. And so Rachel guns them all down, which is where we leave off this week. And so I kind of figured, that was part of the whole gun down the prisoner situation was kind of Gray's test for Rachel. And so I definitely figured that, her actions would, constitute a failure in that regard. And that Gray would, seriously dislike her and maybe, abandon her there or something. But I sure did not expect Kathy's ghost to just show up. She's staring at the computer screens, and who pops up but fucking Kathy, who was already dead. Alright, that's cool. Yeah, so Kathy shows up for 5 seconds, then goes away again. So I don't know if ghosts are going to be particularly relevant, especially given what we see at the end of the episode. More on that in a little bit. But I don't know. I don't really know. Ghosts is kind of a weird thing. The series didn't really work up there are ghosts here. But anyway, so after Rachel has killed all the prisoners, she flips the switch, turns the elevator on, heads back towards Gray, and Gray asks, how she got the switch, and she says, oh yeah, there were a bunch of prisoners, but they were in my way, so I killed them all. And I really like Gray just kind of silently judging Rachel. We definitely see in his expression that he does not approve of the actions Rachel took, but I feel like that's a lot more interesting of a character choice than just him, exploding at her, or abandoning her there, or declaring her a failure, or whatever. Just seeing, that tension of, when he's gonna leave her to die, makes it a lot more interesting. But then they head down to the fourth basement, and they head to, the graveyard that Zack destroyed way back in, episode 2, I think, maybe 3. And Gray mentions that it's a shame what happened to the floor because Eddie was such a, and I'm quoting here, kind child. Which is ridiculous. He killed people all the fucking time for fun. He's not a kind child. Sure, he buried them and gave them good graves, but that's not a kind child thing to do. And that kind of makes any claim he has of judging Rachel's evilness, a little bit suspect. Because he thought Eddie was not evil, and Eddie's, definitionally evil. But anyway, Rachel goes to power on the next elevator, and a bunch of ghost hands pop up. And this is definitely, even more so than when she gunned down the prisoners, the coldest that we've ever really seen her. Because, the prisoners were all, practically zombies, and so they're not exactly, easy to identify with. But the hands, the little, ghost hands crawl out of the grave. And they're, crying for help the whole time as Rachel, squishes them all. And Rachel calls it annoying. Rachel's never really been, a warm, sunny person. But she seems borderline evil. I just mentioned that Gray can't really judge Rachel if he thinks Eddie's such a good person. But, Rachel is not that good a person. So yeah, there's a lot. I'm still not sure how we're supposed to be taking Rachel right now. Rachel is really one of the biggest mysteries of this whole series, and what I'm really hoping gets explained before the show is done is what exactly Rachel is. But that being said, Rachel does seem to know that what she's doing is wrong. Right? Because, she gets back to... She flips the switch after she's crushed all the hands. And Gray asked her the same things he asked her on the third basement. Was there anything there? How do you get to the switch? And instead of, telling the truth like she did in the last floor, she says that the hands were stuffed and weren't talking. So she seems to have some kind of idea that she's doing the wrong thing. I'm not quite sure where we'll go from that. It just kind of adds to the complexity of Rachel as a character. Then we head down to Danny's floor, which is actually pretty interesting, because I was actually thinking that, the trip down to Danny's floor was going to be how the show, padded out its runtime to 16 episodes, given that we're, near the end of the basements and we're only halfway through the show. Because there's supposed to be 16 episodes, right? If there are 12, I can kind of see them handling it in 12 episodes. But, 16, we have the entire length of what we've seen so far again. But anyway, they head down to Danny's floor, and from a little, puddle on the ground, this weird slime monster shows up for, 5 seconds and then leaves. It chases Rachel around, and she escapes it, and then just vanishes. And, it's kind of different from all the other things we see. Because, the zombie prisoners we already knew were on Kathy's floor. Hands rising from graves is kind of an iconic, image. But the slime monster really has nothing to do with Danny, whatsoever. So it's just kind of random. It pops up for a half second and then leaves. So it's just kind of weird. And then we lead to the big crux of Rachel's part of the episode, is that she gets to Danny's room and there is no medicine anywhere. Nothing that can save Zack. So I have a theory on that. So we saw earlier in the episode and in the last episode that both Kathy's corpse and Eddie's corpse are gone. So we see that there is some ability, something is getting rid of things that should not really be gotten rid of. Maybe it's Danny, because we do find out at the end that he's still alive. Though I doubt that it's all Danny. But actually, there's a theory I'm going to explore in a little bit. My initial theory was that Gray had judged Rachel to not be worthy of the medicine due to how she acted against the zombies and the hands. And so with some kind of magic power, maybe something relating to the pink smoke, he just got rid of it. Not sure how he did it, but that's my go-to theory. But the theory I just thought of, so Danny got stabbed pretty bad back in episode 1, right? And yet, he's still alive. So maybe Danny used the medicine on himself, and that's how he survived his encounter with Zack. I feel like that's the most boring explanation, so I hope that's not true, because this is a show that thrives on being kind of ridiculous. But anyway, then Rachel mentions, or had already mentioned, that she wants to go down a floor to get the knife for Zack. And Gray, despite the fact that he seems to be super unapproving of Rachel at this point, is kind of oddly happy to take her down a floor. He even suggests, maybe you can at least get some bandages for him down there. So I'm not entirely sure what to take of that. But then we get to what I think is maybe something just an unnecessary part of the episode. We get even more extensions on Zack's backstory. And while it's not bad per se, it's just kind of a tad long. So what we find out is after Zack killed his parents, or the caretakers, or whoever the fuck they were, he leaves and he kills this woman and sleeps in her car, where we get definitive proof that this is taking place in America, because the cars the driver sees on the left, and we know they have English names, so it's either America or England, and in England the driver's side is on the right. So we know we're in America. And after he kills the woman, sleeps in her car, a blind old man comes and takes care of Zack. And this old man eventually finds out that Zack is just a murderer. He kills people because he wants to. And he's really oddly chill about it. He's all Zack is like, I killed a person because I went out and killed a person because I wanted to go out and kill a person. Which is an incredibly simplistic explanation, but alright. And he's like, oh, alright. Well, what do you want to do now? I'd be like, get the fuck out of my house right now. But anyway, the old man one day leaves to get bread, and then he's killed by some muggers, despite only having 3 pennies on him. And so I spent a good chunk of this flashback kind of wondering why it was here. what exactly it was trying to do at all, instead of just like, besides just like padding, which I definitely feel like it was, by the way. But as we find out, when Zack tracks down the muggers who killed the old man, he sees their happy expressions and realizes that he wants to kill happy people like them. So it's a semi-sympathetic way to explain that whole part of his character, but it's both a little bit too long, just because it's a good half of the episode, as I recall, and it really wasn't necessary. I didn't need to know why Zack wanted to kill happy people and not sad people. That doesn't really add to his character at all, really. I don't know, just kind of a weird thing. Though I do imagine that the knife Rachel is getting on Zack's floor is the same one Zack killed the muggers with. That would kind of rationalize his inclusion at this point in the show, just because, like, if we're bringing up the knife now, we're going to get some backstory on the knife. But I still don't quite know where to go with that. And then we find out Danny's alive! Yay, I guess. Danny was never really much of a character in his first appearance. But maybe he'll do a lot more in this next appearance. And then, that's really the end of the episode. My laptop's dying, I'm going to charge it right now. But we do get the title for next week's episode, which leaves me more than a little interested. Because the next episode, as we all know, the episode titles come from lines in the episode. And the next one is titled, There Is No God in This World. And as we know, Rachel is super fucking religious. You know, her whole character is like, I would kill myself, but God doesn't like suicide. That's like why she's on this adventure. She wants Zack to kill her, which is honestly kind of just suicide again. But I'm kind of interested in what exactly leads to that line. I hope it involves Rachel, and it's not just like the Danny and Zack plot that's brewing now. Because I should have mentioned when I mentioned Danny coming back, he shows up right next to the unconscious Zack. But yeah, I do want to see where we go, how that line comes into play next week. But all in all, this is honestly kind of my least favorite episode in a while. Just because, as I've said over and over again, Angels of Death really shines because of Rachel and Zack. Rachel and Zack are the highlights of this show, and this arc, in this episode in particular, they just don't even see each other in the slightest, and I feel like that kind of drags it down. Not to mention, the flashback is kind of superfluous, and it goes on a little too long. But still, it was not a bad episode. Even you know, Angels of Death at its worst at this point is still really entertaining. So it's always got that. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this week's episode of Angels of Death. I hope you all enjoyed the the episode and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like, or subscribe, or whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!